Today, one of the most prominent figures of left-wing vulgarity politics is Twitch streamer Hasan Piker. Coming from the Young Turks, he has built a strong fan base. He has converted a lot of people to left-wing values and is therefore part of the US political landscape. Hasan's popularity comes from his authenticity and rejections of both conservative and liberal politics. During his streams, he educates his audience on left-wing politics, including class struggle.
What do you mean? I bought a Taycan. It's like infinitely better than a Tesla.
Feminism.
I guess like being the most unfuckable woman on the planet all of a sudden like offers you this unique perspective.
Trans rights.
You are cancer. You are just a trans person. Sorry, you don't know what the you're talking about.
Anti-racism.
You haven't talked to the minority locals there like I did. So it's like, how are you gonna sit up here and tell me like how it really is?
But Hasan is left-wing. He's a socialist, he's pro-feminism, pro-trans rights, pro-minority rights in general. And he's also proof that being left-wing doesn't mean being virtuous.
This is from a video called "The Left is So Problematic." In it, Alice talks about how the left uses disruptive protest and vulgarity, instances of bold but strange political pushes, which makes me wonder, why is Hasan included in this video? In today's society, the use of vulgarity will only make you seem more colloquial and relatable. But the common criticisms of Hasan have far more to do with hypocrisy than vulgarity. Hasan isn't problematic because he's too bold or too vulgar. He's problematic because he's a popular political figure who's completely unable to uphold his own party's values, or his own. For example, his anti-capitalist takes.
I think deep down you have to recognize the cognitive dissonance it takes you specifically to live a balanced life as a financially successful capitalist. No, it doesn't take any cognitive dissonance to recognize that, because you do not understand the fundamentals of the things I talk about. If I was a capitalist, I would be accumulating capital. I would dump the money that I earn, okay, on this website into accumulating capital.
The new Himbo fitness line from Hasan Piker is all union made here in America.
You accumulate capital using leftist aesthetics? Yeah, I definitely do that.
So next time you lift your personal record, how about you try lifting your fellow workers too?
The fact the clothing is union-made does align with Hasan's political beliefs, but the notion that Hasan isn't a capitalist participating in the free market and entrepreneurship is absurd. There are much bigger hypocrisies regarding unions and Hasan, though.
But overall, I have a vision of change that I describe fairly frequently. It coincides with the overarching point of view of the DSA, which is social democratic reforms and exhausting state machinations until you get to a point where slowly but surely you are changing the economy by focusing on businesses, increasing labor unions and worker participation in the workplace from a transitional market socialist state to a full-blown socialist state.
And it makes sense that an anti-capitalist would have these views, but in practice he puts little to no emphasis on the importance of unions.
What are your thoughts on consumer activism if it's like I only buy clothes from union-made sources? I mean, I don't. I try to source all of my, when I'm selling clothes in the form of merchandise, I try to make sure that that is as ethical as possible, okay? But like, the f do you mean? I don't buy only from union-made sources. Like, that's an insane thing.
So supporting unions is one of the major parts of Hasan's political vision. But in practice, supporting unions whenever possible is an insane thing to do. The hypocrisy reaches a peak when he plugs Chinese-made merch while talking to a union rep.
Next question is for Hasan. Hasan, what do you think? First of all, Hasan, where did you get your shirt? Second of all, Hasan, what do you think particularly visible people on the left, like yourself, can do to support the labor movement, you know, online or offline?
I got the shirt from Ethan Klein, Teddy Fresh. It's his brand.
And yes, Teddy Fresh does use Chinese labor, which is arguably a third world country.
The Western world, or dominant countries in that capitalist global economy, exploit the developing nations or the third world for their natural resources and unlimited labor pool that they can consistently drive the wage prices or labor prices down.
Right, that's exactly what Teddy Fresh is doing. About 3 months ago, Little Joel made a video called Rich Socialists. He gives his take on some of the controversy and hypocrisy surrounding Hasan.
Whenever some big leftist, usually Hasan, buys something extravagant or whatever, shows off that he has money in any way, there's a conversation often had by conservatives, but also by good faith leftists, talking about how he's not an authentic socialist, about how it's hypocrisy or whatever. And I obviously this is a very dated discourse and a very old conversation to be having. The problem I have is that what we're really doing when we call people hypocrites, hypocritical leftists for not being more charitable, is making the argument that to be a leftist means being a good person. And no, it doesn't. It absolutely does not. Being a leftist, believing in socialism, these are completely unrelated. These do not make you a good person.
There is a lot to unpack with this video. First of all, I understand that being politically mindful doesn't make you a good person. The problem is, Hasan is a representative of sorts. He's an influencer. This isn't Tom only gets 20 miles to the gallon on his way to the voting booth. This is the largest political commentator on the largest streaming platform. What Little Joel is implying here is that he doesn't care about the quality or consistency of the people who represent his own beliefs in pop culture. And you shouldn't care either. It's one thing if you're just another person with a political leaning. It is a completely different thing if that's your job. We'll return to Little Joel in a bit.
But Hasan is left-wing. He's a socialist, he's pro-feminism, pro-trans rights, pro-minority rights in general. And he's also proof that being left-wing doesn't mean being virtuous.
I really do not understand this line of reasoning. The definition of virtuous is having or showing high moral standards. So are the things she just listed not high moral standards? And somebody may argue, well, it's not that high of a moral standard to fight for equality. Okay, but do you think these are higher moral standards than, say, the average conservative would have? If you believe so, then yes, being a leftist would require virtue. Hasan's hypocrisy goes far beyond his confusing relationship with capitalism. There are times when the mask slips a little bit and he gets a bit hostile with his chat and sometimes even marginalized groups.
Dude, every argument is literally just like, I personally am losing my mind, so I'm just gonna yell at you right now. Because I don't have enough money to go to the therapist, so like this makes me feel good. What the is this?
Bro, when I tell you I've not felt like this in my life, like it's crazy, bro. Like basically I felt like they were telling me how I should feel.
Yeah, get used to that. Well, now that you're in the art sphere, you're content creating, you're gonna be around a lot of left-leaning people. You're gonna be around a lot of people who think they know better than you. Even if they're white, they're gonna tell you, no, as a black man, this is what you should feel.
Mm-hmm. You are cancer. You are just a trans person. Sorry, you don't know what the you're talking about.
Everyone makes mistakes, but these are mistakes that if you are anywhere on the political spectrum other than far left, you will get crucified for. Take this video on politics and dating, for example.
What about moderate? What even is a moderate? Well, it depends who you ask and where they live. Typically, it means someone who rejects extreme political views on either side. To some, moderate means, I think about it, but I'm underinformed. Or it's a way station for people who grew up in conservative households on their way to becoming more liberal. Though many responded saying that they thought moderates were conservatives in disguise.
Oh yeah, great. This is what we need. We need moderate erasure, because the only logical way somebody could ever become a moderate is either they're too dumb to understand politics, they're just smart enough where they're about to become a leftist, or they're just straight up lying as a conservative. And why does extreme need to be in quotations? Why does she have to roll her eyes when she says both sides? We get this kind of elitist rhetoric simply because moderates exist on dating apps. Believe it or not, there is more than enough to criticize on both sides of the political spectrum. She goes on to talk about how conservatives are more likely to lie about their political leanings on dating apps.
Those who identify as right-wing are 2.5 times more likely to hide their political leanings than those who lean left. Being openly conservative on a dating app, especially in a city like London, does hurt your chances of getting a date. The social consequences of admitting you're a conservative.
Lying to get more dates is one thing, but lying about your political views out of fear of public persecution is another. At the start of her video, she says this.
Apparently politics have become so partisan that people won't even date someone with different beliefs about human rights.
There's kind of an implication here that if you don't align with her politics, then you don't care about human rights. And this kind of argumentation has been used by the left for quite some time. If you don't agree with us, you're a danger to society. If you don't agree with us, you're hurting other people. If you don't agree with us, you don't care about human rights. If you don't agree with us, you're hardly human. So I have no idea how little Joel and Anna can just casually sweep this elitism under the rug. Not only that, but little Joel can't help himself but continue being elitist when trying to make an anti-elitist argument for his own party.
The best thing about leftism really is that it deals with the real world, that it deals with actual material forces.
You see, the left isn't capable of being elitist because unlike other parties, they deal with reality, and other parties deal with delusion, which makes leftists above elitism. It's like bragging about how humble you are.
Charity as a concept is a virtue. It's a virtuous thing to do for everybody. Everybody almost agrees that giving of yourself, sacrificing for other people, giving people what they need is a good thing to do. It's not leftist to give people things that they need.
Isn't the redistribution of wealth and resources a common tenet of leftism and socialism? Or do the rich socialists realize after accumulating their wealth that it's really not as fun to redistribute?
Judge whoever you want to judge, be mad at whoever you want to be mad at. I have no beef with you for getting snippy online with whoever you think is too rich. That's just good fun.
Judge whoever you want to judge, be mad at whoever you want to be mad at. Honestly, I couldn't have put it any better myself. But what about the leftist notion of acceptance, being judgment-free, body positivity, and normalizing other unhealthy behavior?
There's nothing in any of these videos that contradicts the notion of living healthy.
Are these people not good enough for your honest criticism, or does it just make you feel better about yourself to lie to them? I'm sorry, I'm just smart enough to realize that even if I did give you my honest advice, you're probably too marginalized to take it, so, you know, keep doing you, you're doing great, body positivity, you're living your best life.
That's just a good thing to do with your time, frankly, I don't know. Being mad at rich people, whatever, have fun. But I would just caution against making it about some deep-seated ideological leftist issue because it just doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up.
Ah, I see how it is. So we're allowed to judge and criticize, except if somebody's trying to dissect your political ideology. As we all know, the first step to anti-capitalism is deciding not to analyze capitalism. I thought a big part of socialism was worrying about how the upper class, the 1%, influences politics and the economy. I don't know, it just seems like another layer of elitism to me, like, look how noble we are. I know this is the kind of argument that Little Joel is trying to counter, but he's completely undermined by his lack of self-awareness.
Leftists don't, or at least shouldn't, believe that Hasan should rule the world, that he is exempt from class forces, that we are all autonomous moral agents, and if you just put us in charge, we would be amazing at it and not selfish. That's a horrible belief, and it's not true.
What? One of the most common arguments I hear for socialism and communism is, oh well, if I were in charge, it would be different from those other historical disasters. Little Joel, I don't know if you've been paying attention to politics, but people are more than willing to morally posture for the chance at power and to be in office. That's actually exactly why I'm making this video. I believe that a lot of the moral posturing, especially from the last decade, is completely disingenuous. I do not believe that Hasan cares about unions beyond being a cultural aesthetic and a selling point to his brand. If he did, then he would at least try to encourage his audience to make more ethical purchases. He just does not seem to care about the things he says he cares about. This is a guy who has massive reach and claims to teach political virtues. Wouldn't you want that person to be at least a little bit virtuous?
You literally come to me to recognize the distinction, right? You're supposed to be. You're supposed to not know. I get that.
People fight for more than just moral superiority, though. There's also a battle for authenticity.
You know, there's something so authentic about just letting go of your emotions and just saying what you want to say. And by creating this atmosphere where ideas really fight, quite literally, you have to put your mask off. And while the left is totally okay with that because they're very clear with their ideas and intentions, the center-right, the right or the far-right are kind of scared because if they remove their mask, they might say something that is classist, that is racist.
This is from Alice's video, who was making the argument that leftists don't need to be good or virtuous. But the elitism is still undeniable. She says while the left is more comfortable with honesty because they're better communicators, anyone who's center or right of center is afraid of honesty. Remember, this video is supposed to be an argument against elitism on the left. But just like the Little Joel video, the sense of superiority looms heavily. The concept of authenticity brings us to the question, is Hasan Piker a grifter?
Something that I always mention is being a leftist grifter, right? Like whenever people say you accumulate money by adopting leftist aesthetics, I find that to be strange because if that was the case, if this was a profoundly lucrative line of work, you would have more people going left rather than going right. And it's always people going right on the internet. So like if you yourself are a leftist, how the do you see the world every goddamn day and you see so many motherfuckers on the right with massive audiences, with $50 million contracts that are being given to them, okay, with billionaires lining up their pockets and go, no, it's actually, you know, leftist entertainment is literally the grift.
This is a terrible defense of himself. Just because the Daily Wire makes more money than the Young Turks doesn't mean that leftist grifting isn't possible. I almost pick up a sense of jealousy when Hasan mentions Crowder's potential $50 million Daily Wire contract. With that being said, even though I think Hasan is often disingenuous and just lazy with his beliefs and takes, I do not think he's a grifter. I think it's a far more unique problem. Given Hasan's affluent beginnings and his uncle in the leftist media, it would make sense that Hasan becoming a social media personality would be the path of greatest convenience, or at least the most obvious path to fame and fortune. Hasan now streams roughly 8 to 12 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week. Hasan practically lives within the confines of social media. He is the epitome of chronically online, and Hasan will take pretty much any opportunity to fight with his chat. With this much chat and social media interaction every day, it's hard for me to imagine that Hasan allows himself enough breathing room to even come up with his own opinions. I think parasocial pandering is a better way to put it than grifting. I think Hasan, like many people today, confuse internet activism with real-world activism. You can make whatever critique of capitalism you want online, but if you're a consumerist who constantly bathes in luxury, you are not an anti-capitalist, no matter how hard you try to explain it away. Take the Liver King, for example. He promoted a certain lifestyle online, he got rich from promoting that lifestyle online, and then when it turns out he wasn't living that lifestyle, people called him out, he was held accountable. And while I think the Liver King's deception was more intentional, Hasan's hypocrisies should not be ignored, accepted, or celebrated.
In FD Signify's recent video, Hasan commented on the phases of cancellation he faced and concluded the following.
People make it seem like you're a bad person, you're a villain, you're right. Immoral. They have to moralize their content consumption, and they have to also moralize like the kinds of content that they don't like. And this is ironic because this is a very liberal tendency, because liberals have no way of doing materialist analysis. It's antithetical to their worldview, and therefore they like to harp on cultural signifiers. And ironically, that's why you get this like, my consumption is saying something about my morals. That's why I'm consuming good things and not bad things. That's why there's so much cultural analysis.
He's specifically talking about content, but why do leftists care about ethical consumption in general? I think it's something like to curb late-stage capitalism through consumer choices, which would align with Hasan's perspective of unions on paper, but he doesn't practice what he preaches, and oftentimes he doesn't even preach what he claims to be preaching.
If I was a capitalist, I would be accumulating capital. I have no guilt purchasing stuff that I have the capacity to buy, and neither should you. But like, what do you mean? I don't buy only from union-made sources. Like, that's an insane thing.
These takes would not be a problem whatsoever, except for the fact that Hasan brands himself as a pro-union, pro-socialist, anti-capitalist. It would be like if I started a vegan podcast, but I couldn't stop eating lamb chops. And then when I'm called out for it, not only do I do the mental gymnastics to convince myself that I'm still a vegan, but I tell you that you can eat lamb chops and still be a vegan too. This political whiplash is beyond cartoonish.
A politician condemned Yellow Vest protests that he said foster chaos and violence. He regretted that those people refused to engage in a respectful dialogue. And another guest was on the show and he asked the politician, what do you think average people say to you when they see you talk to them as if they were some sort of brainless individuals? Shut up, they say. Shut the f*** up.
Okay, so how do you think people view leftist YouTubers who become apologists for hypocrisy? How do you think people view Hasan when he treats his audience like this?
The labor theory of value is cringe. It's not really rooted in empirical fact. No, you're right. Totally. Unlike what? The marginal utility theory, which is totally rooted within empirical fact. Thank you for describing to me how, our current popular economic understanding of value is totally rooted within empirical fact, right? No, it's not. So shut the f*** up.
Somebody like Alice might call this productive vulgarity politics, but to me it just seems pointless, childish, and embarrassing. But hey, the lower they keep the bar for themselves, the more content for me. After all, who amongst us doesn't want a slice of the American dream? Alright, that's gonna have to do it for this one. Shout out to the best subscriber squad in all of YouTube. I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
I said jail time.
Mr. Rocco, did you vote yes or no?
You don't touch me. You understand that? What? You touch me.
You know what? I'm going to recess this meeting.
Thank you.